I extend my sincere invitation to you to the channel of Story with Sandeep. In the first episode of the story, Mountain of the Moon, we heard about Shankar. A boy from a small village who was somewhat unique. He had a strong passion for sports, adventure, boxing, and extraordinary activities. Due to his father's illness, his mother urged him to work in the jute mill. However, his heart was set on something else. He dreamt of Africa and had been preparing himself for it since childhood. Suddenly, Shankar came to know that his sister's husband worked in the construction department in Mombasa, East Africa. Shankar wrote him a letter expressing his desire to go there. After a few days, Shankar received a telegram from Mombasa stating that if he wished, he could go to Uganda. Mountain of the Moon by Bibhuti Bhusan Bandyopadhyay. Starting second episode.
Four months later, it's the end of March. A branch line of the railway from Mombasa to a place called Kisumu on the bank of the Victoria Lake was being built. The place was located about 350 miles west of Mombasa. Shankar arrived at the Nudsburg station of the Uganda Railways, which was situated 72 miles southwest. Shankar had just joined the construction side as a clerk-cum-assistant storekeeper. There were several other tents around him. As there are no proper houses had been built yet. The camp were arranged in an open space with a circular pattern, surrounded by vast expanses of tall grass and occasional trees. At the edge of the camp stood a large baobab tree. Shankar had seen pictures of Africa's famous tree, the baobab, numerous times, but seeing a real one in person filled him with awe. In this new country, with a fresh mind full of aspirations, Shankar felt as if he had discovered the meaning of his dreams in this secluded field and forest of Uganda. Whenever his work was done, he would venture out daily from his camp, exploring in whichever direction his gaze led him. East, west, south, north. In all directions, the grass stood taller than a person's head, sometimes even higher. One day, the chief engineer of construction department called Shankar and said,
"Listen, Shankar. Don't wander too far from here without a gun. Even stepping a foot outside in this grassland can be dangerous. Firstly, people have lost their way in this grassland. And they perished due to lack of water in these areas. Secondly, Uganda is the land of lions. Even though the sound of our shouts and the noise of our hammering might have scared them away to a distance, we can't rely on that. Be very cautious. None of these areas are completely safe."
One day afternoon, work was progressing smoothly. Suddenly, a cry of distress was heard from a distance among the tall grass. Everyone rushed towards that direction to see what was happened. Shankar also joined them. Everyone searched the grassland closely. But they have found nothing there. Then who had cried? The chief engineer arrived, and assembled all the workers and took a roll call. A laborer was missing. After investigation, it was found that he had gone towards the forest of grass a while ago. But no one had seen him return. After searching for a long time, they found a lion's paw mark on soft ground. The chief engineer, accompanied by a group of people with guns, went further, following the paw mark, and discovered the blood-stained body of an unfortunate laborer behind the large rock. They brought him back to the camp. But there was no trace of the lion. Maybe the crowd of people would have scared them away. That man died before evening. Next day, a wide area around the camp was cleared by cutting down long grasses. Since that day, the workers have not discussed anything except the story of the lion. A few months later, the incident started fading away from people's memory. Life in the camp went back to normal. It was a very hot day. However, in the evening, the weather gradually turned cold. A bonfire had been lit in front of laborers' tent. Everyone gathered around the fire and engaged in conversation. Shankar was also present, listening to their stories and reading Kenya Morning News by the light of the fire. The newspaper was 5 days old, but it was his only window to the world beyond the grasslands around. There was a man named Thirumal, who had become a good friend of Shankar. He was from Madras. Thirumal was fluent in English and had a lot of enthusiasm. He had left home in search of adventure. He sat beside Shankar and gradually started talking about their homeland, about his parents, and his younger sister. He loves his younger sister very much. Shankar felt a connection with Thirumal's stories, as if they reminded him of his own family. Thirumal was planning to return home in the month of September. He worried about whether the chief would grant him leave for 2 months or not. The night rolled on. The fire was occasionally dying down, and the workers kept adding more wood to it. Many had gone to sleep. By the time the slender new moon showed up lazily over the horizon, it was quite late. On the vast grassland, the faint moonlight started playing hide-and-seek with darkness, throwing long, mysterious shadows of tall wild trees. As Shankar leaned back on a post, he was mesmerized by the endless savanna washed by light and shade. Far away from home, as Shankar watched the splendor of the silent night, a strange thought gripped him. Beyond that baobab tree, the astonishing land mass stretched all the way to Cape Town. In between, there were countless hills and mountains covered by jungles, the ancient stone ruins of Zimbabwe, the vast and dangerous Kalahari Desert, the land of gold and diamond mines. A famous gold explorer, he could not resist examining the stone he stumbled upon. When he picked up the stone and examined it closely, he discovered that it contained a mixture of gold. He uncovered a large gold mine in that place. Back home in India, Shankar had read stories like this. And now, he is in Africa, the mysterious continent, the land of gold and diamonds. No one knows how many unknown tribes of people, unseen landscapes, and undiscovered creatures are hiding in its boundless tropical forests. Lost in thought, Shankar dozed off. Suddenly, his sleep was disturbed by an unusual noise. He woke up abruptly and sat down. The moon was rising high in the sky. Its soft radiance resembled the pure light of a daytime. The fire had died out completely and the laborers, huddled together, were fast asleep. Absolute silence reigned over the place. Suddenly, Shankar turned his gaze to where his beloved Thirumal had been. He was not there. Shankar assumed he had returned to his tent. Shankar also tried to get up and about to leave for his tent. At that moment, not far away in the western corner of the field, a fierce lion's roar was heard. It seemed as if the faint moonlight had risen above the forest. The laborer sprang up from their slumber. The chief engineer came out of his tent with a gun. This was the first time Shankar had ever heard the roar of a lion. A directionless emotion that stirred during the dense wilderness in the last night's moonlight. It wasn't fear, but a mysterious and complex emotion. There was an old Maasai among the campers. He said, "Someone had just killed by the lion. If a person does not get killed, lion will not roar like that." Thirumal's roommate came and said that Thirumal was not in their tent. As soon as the companions heard these words, they were startled. Shankar himself entered the tent, and found that Thirumal's bed was empty. The laborers lit torches and went out to search Thirumal. They investigated each tent and called him out loudly. But no one responded. After a while they observed that the place where Thirumal had been sleeping, from that area a clear sign of a heavy object being dragged on the ground. No one wasted any time understanding the situation. Near the baobab tree, a small piece of Thirumal's shirt cuff was found. The engineer went ahead with his gun, and Shankar followed him. The laborers started to follow them. In that deep night, they searched far and wide in all directions of the field. But no trace of Thirumal's body was found. Then, they heard the lions roar again, but this time from far away. It was perhaps the fierce cry of a mysterious demon that defended this desolate land from strangers. The old Maasai said, the lion was taking away a human body. We would have to pay for it. It would not stop before killing several people. Everyone be cautious. Once a lion starts eating humans, it becomes extremely cunning. It was almost 3 in the night. Everyone returned to their tents. The whole field was illuminated by the flickering light. In this part of Africa, you wouldn't see a large bird, but you could hear the call of a nocturnal bird. A sweet sound that defies description. Just now, that bird called it from far away, perched on a tree branch. It saddened the heart, in an instant. Shankar could not fall asleep. Everyone went inside the tent, because everyone has a lot of trouble. A roaring fire was lit in front of the tent with stacked firewood. Shankar too went into his tent. There was no point in being reckless. But he did not sleep. He lay down in his own corner, looking through the window, towards the vast illuminated unknown horizon. What a strange feeling it was. Why did Thirumal's destiny drag him all the way to Africa for such an untimely, ghastly death? Who knows? What does destiny have in store of Shankar? Africa looks amazingly beautiful. But Africa is terrifying. What would happen if it looked like the vast fields of Bangladesh? Africa would look like an unknown cemetery. Death has put its cruel snares everywhere. No one knows what would happen moments from now. Africa has just taken his first victim. A young Hindu youth named Thirumal. He craves for more. After Thirumal's death, lions made life miserable for the laborers. Lions are fearsome and courageous creatures. Just as they are cunning, they are also brave. In evening, a large fire is lit in various places in the camp, and people gather around the fire to chat, cook, and eat there. In the night, the chief engineer walked around the camp a couple of times with his gun and fired shots in the air. Despite being so vigilant, a lion killed a laborer in the evening just 2 days after Thirumal died. The next day, a Somali laborer went to break stone within 300 yards of the tent in the afternoon. He didn't come back at evening. That very night, after 10 o'clock, Shankar was returning from chief engineer's tent. There is no one outside. Only a few almost extinguished fires here and there. Shankar heard jackals howling far away. Cries of jackals always reminded Shankar of the beautiful countryside of Bengal. He tries to imagine his house and tries to imagine that hog plum tree in the corner of their house. It was a lovely feeling. Where is he? He lies on a mat near the window of their house in the village. Would he see the leaves of the hog plum tree twirling down when he opens his eyes? Could it be true? Should he open his eyes? Shankar slowly opens his eyes. It was a moonless night. In the distance, that big baobab tree is standing like a demon in the vague darkness. Suddenly, he senses something was moving on the low umbrella-like thatched roof of a tent. In an instant, he was filled with fear and wonder. A huge lion was digging the thatched roof of a laborer's tent with its paws, and occasionally moving its nose to smell something. The distance from the tent was not more than 20 hands. Shankar realizes that he is in terrible danger. The lion was making a hole through which he would enter the tent and snatch away its victim. Fortunately for Shankar, it was far too busy to notice him. There is no one outside the tent, and no one stays outside at night because of the fear of lions. He himself is unarmed, without even a stick in hand. Shankar turned his gaze towards the chief engineer's room, keeping his eyes on the lion. 1 minute. 2 minutes. He had no idea what tremendous control over his own nerves before. He neither uttered a fearful word, nor attempted to run back. He raised the curtain of the chief's tent and entered. The engineer, still at his table, was surprised to see the way Shankar came in. Before he could ask anything, Shankar whispered, "Sir, lion." The chief sprang out of his chair and asked, "Where is it?" Chief grabbed a 375 Mannlicher repeater from the gun rack quickly, and gave another gun to Shankar. They gradually lifted the curtain of the room and emerged outside. A little away was the workers' hut with a circular roof. But where was the lion? Shankar pointed with his finger and said, "Sir, I just saw it. It was trying to dig through the thatch." The chief said,
"It's fled away. Wake everyone up."
In no time, there was a big commotion in the camp. The laborers came out carrying iron rods, clubs, and pickaxes. They made a big noise and looked for the lion. A hole was indeed seen in the roof. The lion's paw mark too was seen. But where is lion? It had made off. They made the fires bigger by putting more wood and dry leaves. That night, many couldn't sleep, and no one ventured outside the room. At the end of the night, Shankar had fallen asleep in his own room when he heard a tremendous noise. He woke up. The Maasai warriors were shouting fiercely, "Simba, Simba." He heard 2 gunshots. Shankar rushed out of the room and asked a man what happened. The man replied, "In the late night everyone just fallen asleep, and that moment the lion had attacked and wounded a mule in the stable." The next evening, a young laborer was killed by a lion within 100 yards of the campsite. The day after, another laborer captured it from under the baobab tree. The laborers were too terrified to go out. When a railway track is constructed, laborers has to go far in small groups with pickaxes for working. Now, they didn't want to leave the room even during daylight. Staying inside the room was also unsafe at night. Everyone was worried if he would be the next victim. Life became terribly uncertain. Only the Maasai warriors remained steady. They feared nothing, not even death. They continued their work far as 2 miles away from the camp with their pickaxes. And the chief engineer visited the site with his rifle a couple of times during the day to see if things were all right. Many attempts were made, but the lion's ferocity did not diminish. Despite the steps taken to secure the camp, the laborers could not get rid of the lions. Some of the men felt there were several man-eating lions, not just one. How many of them could be shot? The chief said,
"There are not many man-eating lions. Only one of them was doing all the damage."
One day, Chief Engineer called Shankar and asked him to take the gun and visit the site where the pickaxe laborers were working. Shankar replied, "Sir, give me your manlacher." The chief agreed. Shankar took off on a mule with the rifle. About a mile away from their camp was a watering hole of wild animals. By the time Shankar reached the places, it was almost 3 o'clock. No one was around, and the sun's rays created a heat wave in the field. Suddenly, the mule stopped and refused to move forward. Shankar felt that the mule was afraid to go towards the place. A little later something moved in the nearby bushes, but he could not see anything. He got off the mule, but the animal did not want to move. Suddenly, a cold shudder ran down Shankar's spine. Was something waiting for him in the bush? He had heard that many times it is like this. Lions track their prey silently from behind bushes and attack, taking advantage of the secluded spot. If that is the case, Shankar felt it would be unsafe to go any farther. He decided to return. The moment he turned back with his mules towards the tent, there was something stirred in the bushes. Before Shankar understood what was happening, a massive tawny animal jumped upon the mule with a blood-curdling roar. Shankar was a few yards away from the mule. He immediately stood back and raised the gun and shot twice. It was not clear whether the bullet hit, but then the mule fell to the ground and the massive animal ran away. Shankar examines the mule's shoulder with a lot of flesh torn apart, blood covering the ground. The mule was thrashing about in pain. Shankar ended his suffering with a single shot. He returned to the camp, slowly and cautiously. The chief said,
"That the lion was surely injured. If the bullets hit, it would have to be injured. But the question was whether bullet had hit it or not."
Shankar told the engineer he was not sure. He had just fired the gun. Construction team searched the area carefully for 2 to 3 days but could not find any wounded or dead lion. It started raining in the beginning of June. Due to the presence of lions and the nearby swamps, the area became unsanitary, and as a result, the camp was withdrawn from there. Shankar did not continue with the construction company for long. He got a job as a station master at a small station about 30 miles from Kisumu, and went there with his belongings. The end of second episode, Mountain of the Moon, by Bibhuti Bhusan Bandyopadhyay.